Welcome to the Cookbook, where we invite guests on to share the ingredients of what has helped make them the successes that they are. All of it, the good, the not so good. You're not going to find anything half-baked here. And our kitchen gets messy sometimes. That's when the fun starts. So come on and join us. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Cookbook. I'm your host, Iris Goldfeder, and I am super excited about my guest today, Nancy Monson. We met like a few months ago and we instantly connected, and she is amazing. She is a human design, life and leadership coach. Some people also call her a wise woman of wisdom, and she is very freaking wise, which you will find out when you meet her. She's a really incredible person, and there's something very special about her, and I think that you'll feel that way after you see this episode as well. So without further ado, let's bring on Nancy. Hey there.
Hi.
As you get to see all the technical difficulties that happen while we film this.
That's part of the gig, with technology and internet and wireless and all of these things. It comes and it doesn't come sometimes.
I mean, yes. And it seems like this year, not every episode, but like a lot of episodes, we have had like these things like happened before. Like I think somebody's internet wasn't working, or we actually had to redo one. We had to invite somebody back because her internet just like kind of went out in the middle of it.
Oh, wow.
And we didn't realize it until, it didn't record. So energetically there, who knows? But you're here and I'm excited. And I'm excited I get to spend time with you. Again, we usually meet and we usually talk for an hour and a half anyway. So, this is just other people listening into our conversation at this point. So,
yeah. And Iris, thank you so much for inviting me to be on your podcast. This is fun.
No, I think this is awesome. And I think that, people need what you do. So, we'll get into more of that, but, there are so many intuitive coaches out there, right? And there's so many people that, do what you do, but each person, is different, and they're like, the specialty is different. And you just have this, how do I articulate this? Your energy is just so good and calming. And whenever we have conversations, they're just like, so it's like, I feel like I'm in this really cool, like almost like a cocoon of good energy. That's what it feels like.
Nice.
So absolutely.
As we talked the last time we had our little conversation, I think we just have there's a karmic connection that we have. And so it just really feels soul nourishing for me, and I think for you too.
Yes, that's perfect. Soul nourishing. That's exactly what it feels like. And I know, I came out, I don't know, a few episodes ago as, a witch, which was funny because it's like I came out twice now, right? It's like I came out 40 years ago or whatever the hell it was, and now I, came out again. But what I find really interesting is that, people connotate that with like, Elphaba and Wicked, right? Like, the green skin and the hat and all that. And it's so much, it's so much more than that. It's not that at all. It's just about a spiritual connection, and how you view your own spirituality. And for me, it happens to be through, crystals and, different kinds of prayers and stuff like that. So, and I think that, for you and I just remember when the first time we met, there was just like this instant, click. And it was like, I remember I got off the call and I was like, I couldn't wait to talk to you again.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, I think I mentioned, it feels like we're soul sisters.
100%. Yeah. We've known each other before, for sure. That I think goes without saying. So, So how did you? So gosh, you do like so many things. So, and I'm going to get the
Yeah.
well because there's like the gene keys and there's the human design and there's like all of this um, and what's so funny about the gene keys thing for me was like I've had people read them to me before and it just it clicked in a different way. But I remember as you were reading it, I was like, oh my God, that's like that explains like so many things. Um, and we'll get into that a little later, but I just love how everything that you do kind of like incorporates. So what did you do before and what got you here?
Okay.
Like tell
Yeah.
everybody about you. Who you are.
Sure. So, well, in human design, like you, I'm a what's called a 6-2. And a 6-2 profile is how there are 12 profiles, and a 6-2 is reflective of how I live my life journey. And a 6-2 tends to be always wanting to learn more and always trying to help others, right? We're here to help others. We have a what's called a transpersonal life theme. So, and as the sixth line, I'm the big picture person. I'm the and you too. We're both really authorities on how to live an authentic 9-centered life, right? Because in human design there are 9 energy centers, right? So we're late bloomers also. So I spent, I don't know, at least I would say till I was in my 60s, I spent learning things and trying things. So I have a really varied background. I started out as a computer scientist years ago, working on a giant supercomputer and doing technical work, and then got bored with that and moved on into basically personal development and human development, personal growth. And that's really been the string or the life theme that's carried me through. And because of that deep desire to grow spiritually and personally, it's led me on all different types of learnings, really, from life coach, training. I spent a year back in Iowa at the Maharishi University studying Vedic literature and technologies of consciousness. I have an MBA from Berkeley, which helped me to be a successful organizational consultant doing executive coaching. But all the while, I was interested in helping people live their best life. I mean, that's really the essence. And that's really the deepest calling of my soul, is to help people be the best they can be their authentic self. And when I discovered human design, that's why it clicked. I'd learned all these different personality tests and different models and systems. But when I got human design, that was the one that blew my socks off. And so for the last 12 years, 13 years, I've been studying that. I went through all the training, and then I discovered Gene Keys, which is a companion system. And when I put the two together, and then incorporate my spiritual guidance training, my Vedic studies, and my Stephen Covey 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, all of the things that I have done over these last 40 years. That's why I feel like I can really help people get to who they are and help them let go of what's holding them back.
Can you explain what Vedic studies are?
So it's ancient Indian philosophies. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who was the transcendental meditation teacher from probably the 60s, he brought that knowledge to the United States and built a whole community. They call it the movement. And when I discovered transcendental meditation, which really saved my life, I was in a really tough place. And when emotionally and psychologically, and when I started meditating, it pulled me out of a dark place. And so I was very, very interested in learning more, as I'm always fascinated to learn more. And so I went back to the university in Iowa and took a master's course in the ancient technologies of consciousness. And these were the Vedic studies that go back thousands of years to the rishis. These rishis are the seers. The Maharishis are great seers who cognize the essence of the universe, how the universe materialized, and what our consciousness is capable of doing. So it's akin to Hinduism. I mean, Buddhism and Hinduism came out of the Vedic studies. The Vedic literature is even more ancient. And so those two, well, Buddhism is a philosophy and Hinduism is a religion. And out of the Vedic studies, that those two ways of seeing the world developed.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. And it's so funny when you said, the Maharishi. I remember, and I know that this was like Krishna, but I remember being in the airport in the 70s and they were walking around with the flowers. Remember they were like in their thing. But it's funny because I remember back then, TM was like one of the biggest things, and I could never shut my brain off, right? And now
you wouldn't, because your design says you can.
Right. I can't.
So
when I meditate now, it's like I'm still. They're like, you leave the room, but I never do. I know that I'm here, and in my mind, I go. I have like this little forest that I go to. There's like this wall. It's like a stone wall, and there's a wooden door, and it's like an arched door, and it's got two. I see the whole thing. I see it like it's like right here. So it's got like iron on it, and you push the doors open. And that's And then there's other times where I will, but I'm never like out of. I never transcend. I'm always like here. Like I know it's like I can hear the dogs barking, right? I can hear all the things. I have the heater on. I can hear that. But in my mind's eye, I go to that other place. And even though it's not, I don't leave here, it's still calming, right? It's still that sanctuary. Kind of.
Yeah.
My office is my sanctuary, right? I have like everything around me that makes me just feel, but when I go there, it's like this, I'm trying to think of the word. It's different, and it's calming, and it's familiar. Like I always go to the same place.
In the shaman world, in the shamanic philosophy practices, they have through drumming, or if you do their medicines, you can go to other worlds, right? And when I did the little shaman training, and she would drum, and we would travel to either the upper world or the lower world, and those worlds in the shamanic mindset, they're real. They just don't have a physical representation, right? They're another dimension. So it seems like to me, when you say you go to your sanctuary, it's like going to another world that is you've created or you've cultivated through your practice.
Interesting. It's like so interesting. So I have a mindfulness coach, and we'll do meditation, and it's very intentional meditation, right? Like we'll do different themes. She has this really great channel on. I listen to it on Spotify, but she records a lot of her things on there, and I remember it was like a few months ago, I couldn't get out of you have those days where you cannot get out of your head. You're just like stuck in your head, and you just need to, And I was just having a day that I could not get out of my head. And I was like, how do I break this? So I listened to one of her guided meditations. I took a bath and I just sat in the bathtub and I listened. And what I find is when I do anything, ritual or any of that, when I'm in the bath, that's like the best place for me. Even though they're like, you should sit up when you do this or you should stand when you do this. It's like, nope, I need to be in my bath with the lights off. I have this amethyst lamp. I have the amethyst lamp lit. And I just kind of, and it was, I think I realized then it was like, oh, this is amazing. I can do this anytime now. I just have to get in the damn bathtub and I'll get out of my head.
And that's the key. That's what I love about human design and gene keys. It's finding your path, right? It's great. Like we've both studied all these different methods and processes and techniques and everything, but when it comes down to it, it's about you trusting your own inner guidance. That's really it. So if it works for you to be in the bath and do your thing, then that's correct for you. Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the challenges. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish.
A lot of times the challenges that we face is we have some idea of what we should be doing because we've been taught this or told this, and we want to be good girls and boys, right? And so we judge ourselves negatively because we're not meeting up to this idea that we've planted in our heads. And that needs to just get removed because it doesn't serve us. We need to find our own way and have the confidence and trust in our own inner guidance. That's what I think is so valuable about human design.
Yeah. And I work with an astrological business strategist, and she's very rooted in magic. Like she has like 3 different books, and I'm actually reading I'm starting to read the magic book now. But what was interesting was, she was the same thing. She's like, play and see what feels right. Because we're told, okay, this should be done standing up and you should hold your left leg up, and see if you could balance. I would break my ass if it's like trying to do this thing. I'm like, or close your eyes and lift your right leg. I'd be on the floor. I would just, fall. So, so I love that. And I've always had this affinity for water. And so, I think the bath to me, I know. I was thinking about that. I was like, that's okay. Bath kind of makes sense. So when you work with people, how do you? What does it look like?
Well, I tend to, with all of the stuff that I could offer people, what I found, and this follows on from what we just talked about, is helping people. I work with them to, I have some programs that are kind of generic because people want to have packages or want to have, okay, what am I getting here? But when I work with people on an ongoing basis, it's really about what comes up in them, and I let them guide me into how to support them, right? So in human design, gene keys, and gene keys is more of a transformational process. Okay, let's say they're saying, well, I'm really having trouble with my relationship. Okay, I go into their design and I look for where are the challenges in a person's relationship, energetic, energy field. And then we work on that, right? So it's about connecting what's going on energetically with them, with how their life is playing out. And so if they have a goal, they want to, okay, I really don't like my work. I really want to do something that's more fulfilling. Okay, we can look in the human design gene keys world and find out what are they naturally designed to do? How can they align with their natural talents and their natural energies? And then the life coaching piece helps me to help them get into something that's more fulfilling. So it's really based on what the person needs and what they're experiencing. And I let their design tell me how to help them.
That's so cool. I think it's so cool. And a lot of people don't realize that, our souls lead. They should. We should lead with our souls, right?
Yeah.
Because when we allow that to happen, the journey changes, like
Totally.
100%.
Totally. Yeah.
Like we're late bloomers, and for me, it what was it, like 2020? I turned 60, and so that's when things started kicking up again. And before we recorded, or before we started recording, we were talking about the dream that I had.
Oh yeah.
And I right, and about the fire, and for those of you who didn't hear it, long story short, I dreamt about a fire, and then that following 2 days after, everything that I dreamt actually happened. And it kind of freaked me out. I was like, holy shit. And I was 20
Yeah.
or 20, whatever. But you had said that, our souls, that it's something else. So that I'm really interested in, because to me, that was just like, I guess I can see things, because then I started, like not seeing things, but I started, I think, feeling more after that or something. I don't know. And then I stopped because it freaked me out.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you've ever heard of Judith Orloff. She's PhD psychiatrist, I believe, and she had prophetic dreams. There's a name for it, which is not coming to me, of course, right now. She had prophetic dreams since she was a girl, and they were usually pretty scary, about challenges that might be happening. And so it took her a long, long time before she was able to heal from her early years, them saying, no, don't share it, saying that was bad, basically. So she's written a couple books. I heard her speak years and years ago. And what she did in her psychiatry work is do a lot of studies on people who had cognitions, who dreamt the future or a possible future. So there's that kind of dream. You might want to check her out, some of her books, if you are interested. But there are other kinds of dreams too. And when I went through my spiritual guidance training, we learned a process called dream partnering, because our soul speaks to us through dreams, through tears, through laughter, and the universe will speak to us, if we pay attention, through what we called in my coaching program cosmic flirts, right? And most of the time we're not paying attention. But when I was going through my menopause transition, which was excruciating, I had some incredible dreams that I worked with my dream partner, and it helped me so much to be able to navigate through this really difficult time in my life. You name it, I had it. Every single menopause symptom in the book. And it was really tough. And so I had this dream. I had a couple, but this one I think you might enjoy. And in the dream, my dear friend who we went through the spiritual guidance training with, he and I were exploring this old mining area where, they take the gold out of the mountain and they bring it in and they filter it out. And so we were walking through the ore house, and this is the house where they do the separation from the gold and the non-important materials. And we walk into this giant room, and all of these men are hanging from the ceiling. They're hanging, like hanging, dead, hanging. And
oh my God.
Yeah. And I woke up from that dream and I was pretty upset. What does this mean? This is kind of gruesome. And so I was working with, and Trevor, my friend, we did some dream partnering. And through the process, what my soul was telling me is I was not yet ready to be birthed. It's like the chrysalis, right? So the transformation process is like a caterpillar who goes into the chrysalis, completely dissolves into a goo, and then the DNA actually dissolves, right? And a new DNA is created, and out pops the butterfly. But there's a period of time
Which is
when
crazy. Yeah.
it stays in that chrysalis. And that was the message from my soul. You're in the chrysalis stage. It's not time to go forward. Be patient. And so
Wow.
those kinds of dreams can be incredibly helpful, but the soul speaks in symbols and images and metaphor. So without that process of dream partnering, I would never have been able to figure out what this gruesome dream really meant. And so it helped me to relax and just say, okay, my soul is doing its thing, even though my ego is anxious and wants to move on and find how I'm going to live my life in this new post childbearing phase, just to be patient. And so that's another thing, that's another element that can be really helpful when people are going through a transition, is to pay attention to dreams. So yours are kind of prophetic, right? Precognition, they call them. But there are other dreams that are soul messages, and they aren't literal. They're, like I said, metaphor.
That is so interesting. You know, it was like my mom passed away. Actually, May 16th was 27 years, which is insane when I think about it. And it was like 2 weeks before she passed. I was going down. I was living in Illinois, and she was in Florida, so I was flying down every weekend, and I would, help out and do whatever. And I think it was like 2 weeks before she passed, I had this dream that the phone rang, and it was her, and her voice was clear, like perfect. And when, the reality was her voice was very weak, and she was a little confused, and, because she was dying from cancer. So, and in the dream, she's like, hello. And I was like, Ma? And she's like, yeah, hi. And I went, you sound good. And she was like, yeah. She goes, I'm good. I'm like, how are you feeling? She said, I've never felt better. And I was like, really? And she sounded all healed and all, whatever. And I was just like, I hung up in my dream, and then I pictured her when she was younger, and I still see it. She had on these white pants and this blue shirt, and I actually kept the blue shirt until it didn't fit me anymore. And this blue, like, tailored shirt, and the sleeves are rolled up, and she looked, tan and amazing, and like 20 years younger. And then, in 2 weeks, she was gone.
Wow.
And then 2 years later, I dreamt about my dad. And same thing, 2 weeks before he passed, he looked a lot younger. He, when he died, I don't think he had any legs left, because he had diabetes. So, that didn't end well. But he was just like a shell. But in the dream, he was walking. He had like this hernia. The hernia was gone. He was great. And I'm like, Dad. And we were walking down this viaduct, and there was like, it was there was like a little bit of water in it. So we were walking on the, either side of it, holding hands. It was like narrow. But I was like, you look great. He's like, I feel great. He goes, and I never felt better. And in my dream, I was like, oh, fuck. Like, I literally, like, in the dream, remembered what happened with my mom. And 2 weeks later, he was gone.
Oh.
And then I would talk to my friends, and my friends were like, if she dreams of you and you're 20 years younger, you got about 2 weeks. So it was like a joke. But I was like, that's kind of not funny. So again, I was like, I don't want to know the shit. Like, I don't want to know.
Yeah, it's tough, because it can be very,
it's like when you get called,
very hard messages.
Yeah. And
so
when this happened again, in 2020. I was like, I don't, come on, man. I don't want this. And they were like, no more choices. It's here and it's staying. And so, so, and it's
if you were
good
to think
because
about those two messages from in your dreams, what would you take away from those? What was the deeper message?
that they had transitioned already.
Mm-hmm. And they were telling you
that they were fine and they were better than they ever were, that they were okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And isn't that lovely?
When it was wonderful, but it was also, when you lose them, right? It's kind of like, it sucks.
It does.
So, and with my mom, the weird thing was the week before she passed, I had stayed for a week. And I had taken her because she had breast cancer and it had metastasized to her brain. So we were taking her for radiation. Yeah, it was hard. But it was good because the part of her brain that it affected, I think, dealt with pain in certain parts of her body. So she wasn't feeling any pain. So I was grateful for that.
Oh, that's a gift.
Right. And I was smoking and I had quit smoking, but this was really stressful. And I was like,
it is stressful.
So I started smoking again. And that whole week she was like, man, that perfume stinks. Whatever the hell perfume you're wearing, it stinks. And it was cigarettes. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. But the day that I left on a Saturday. And no, I'm wrong. I left that following Monday. And she looked at me and she was doing everything on her own. Like she was able to hold her soda and drink from a straw. Wow. She was able to feed herself. Like she hit the right. And I was like, holy crap. Like, she's getting better. And I was like, how do you feel? And she said, great. She goes, can I sit up? And I was like, yeah. So, we sat her up and I woke up that Monday morning and she looked at me and she said, you're leaving today. And I said, yeah, but I'll be back on Saturday. I'll fly back on Saturday. And, and she was like, okay. And then she said a couple of things to me. And then her social worker came and I was like in heaven. I was like, oh my God, she's like getting better. Maybe something happened. She's going to be, So the social worker spent about half hour, whatever, with her. And he comes out and I was like, I mean, are you shocked? Like, doesn't she look amazing? And he was like, no. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, she's not doing too well. I was like, she was just like up and talking and eating and drinking soda. And like, she was, fine. And he said, that was her. And I forgot what they call it. So I thought he was crazy. And I went in and she had gone just like down. And wow. I remember just looking at her. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I'll see you. I'll see you soon. And I leaned over and I kissed her on the head. And then she went into hospice that Thursday. And then she was gone, not that Saturday, but the Saturday after. And I remember, going, in my dream, how amazing she was. And then how she was amazing for a minute. And then it was, and I just wonder, I look at life in general. And guys, I know that, or, people, I know that was heavy, but, for me, it's like when I look back on life experiences, and this has to do with my business as well, bringing stuff back around to business. But it's like the way that, when I get teary, did not expect this. The way that your life experiences mold you, everything happens for a reason. Like you're on this journey. And I truly believe that we've we chose this journey, right? So whatever shit we went through, our souls needed. What sometimes I'm like, really, we had to choose this. But I'm glad, right? But when I look at how things can change on a dime, I bring that piece, right? Like that.
Yep.
I bring that into my life and my business because, you know, I try to be as prepared as I can for, you know, whatever. And I think that when I bring people on, that there's got to be that, not a soul match, but our values have to align, right? And the more I talk to the people that I bring on, and this is guys also, which kind of blows my mind. They're on like this similar kind of journey. It's like this, you know, they're not fully, I think the guys are less aware than the women are. The women are fully woo and they're, you know, I mean, like most of them, or they're on their way there or whatever. But I find that, you know, that experience made me a stronger person because I wasn't always ready for that. Things can change on a dime because she was fine. And then literally like a half hour later, she wasn't.
Yeah.
So, you know, when we talked about human design and everything and how we deal with things and how we're of service, I kind of look at, and like, you know, you too, like you went through your dark period, you call it, but you went through, you know, some shit. And then you came out the other side of it, you know, with this new realization, this new, you know, almost like rebirth.
It's funny you said that. The name of my book is Midlife Rebirth.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Why am I not shocked? Okay, so Nancy has a book. That's called Midlife Rebirth. I laugh because it's like, you know, I've never told that story before, but I feel like all of our stuff is so freaking connected and so, like yesterday we were recording one of my clients. She's also a friend, but she's a client. We do quarterly recording for her, and she is in the nonprofit affordable housing sector, and she's a brilliant human. But people choose different kinds of work for whatever reason, right? And a lot of people in the not-for-profit sector have recovered from some kind of a trauma.
Yeah, that can be a wake-up call for sure. The trauma, and this is a choice, right? And the book, while the book that I wrote is focused on women in transition, because it's Awaken to the Wise Woman You Were Born to Be, right? That's the book. But the guts of the book, the main piece of it is true for everyone. And I think it's on my website. I'm pretty sure I have it up there. It's a book, an ebook called When Life Falls Apart: How to Navigate Through These Traumatic Change Situations, which is the same as a midlife transition, but sometimes it's like what you went through with your mother passing away. I have a client whose son was killed in a motorcycle accident, you know, and how do you navigate these horrendous things that happen? And that's what this ebook, When Life Falls Apart, is about. Our soul can help us through the change cycle, right? And it's about the loss, the letting go, and it's called solutio, the dissolving. It's the water element. It's alchemy, right? It's inner alchemy. And the second phase is calcinatio. It's the fire of new life. So we let go of whatever is no longer alive for us. Sometimes it happens without our consent, right? When tragedy happens, or we get fired from a job, or our partner leaves us. I mean, it's not always in our control. But we go through that loss, that letting go. And then there's the opportunity, the fire of new life, where we start to have interest in something new, right? And that part is the opportunity to try out new things, to see, does it have life for me? Does my soul light up when I play in this area? And after a time, and these don't always go in chronological order. Sometimes we go back and forth. But the third phase is sublimatio, which is air. It's the vision for the new life, right? So that's an opportunity
Water,
for us
fire,
to
air.
say, yeah. And of course, the last one is earth. Coagulatio, right? Manifest the vision. And so that's the guts of the midlife book, but it's also what I wrote in the free ebook, Awaken When Life Falls Apart, because all of us go through trauma of some kind or another, either self-induced or other induced, right?
Yeah.
The circumstances. And there's a way to do it soulfully. And that's what what the dreams can help with, because that certainly was helpful for me, going through this difficult menopause transition where I lost my mother, I lost my father in 14 months apart. They both passed away. I got laid off from my work. I was engaged and that fell apart. My health went down the tubes. I mean, you name it, it happened in about 18 months. And so it really hit me hard. And that's when, understanding how my soul was supporting me through dreams, through, magical connections when I paid attention, and taking care of myself. And I really, after my father passed away, on his 102nd birthday, by the way. Yeah. Anyway, there's a story there. I took the rest of the year off because, my mother had passed the year before, and then my father, and then this whole other shit that happened in my life. And so I just took the rest of the year off, and that's exactly what my soul wanted me to do. And I was worried because I was self-employed at that time. How am I going to, and the universe took care of it because I was following what was important to my soul and this process that I was undergoing. And that's what people struggle with, is trusting, right? We have a saying,
yes.
The soul knows a way even when the ego doesn't.
Oh, I love that. And it's true, because when I decided to just let go, and this was, how long ago is this? Like, I want to say about 4 years ago. I was trying to control everything, like outcomes of things and all of this, and like, money stuff and client stuff and this. And I got to the point, and it was just like, okay, because the universe was like smacking me on the head, like, stop, let go. And I'm like, how am I supposed to let go? Right. Like, and I remember I decided, fine. I'm like, okay. And I looked up and I was like, I am letting go. You take it. But if this doesn't work in 6 months, I'm taking it back. I was just like, kind of like, because I was afraid, right? It was like, what if this doesn't work? And you can't make bargains like that. That shit doesn't work.
Well,
but I thought it did.
There is some negotiability.
I mean, you can, right? So I let go, and things were not going well. Like, I was just like making really poor decisions, really bad money decisions, really bad, whatever. And I remember I woke up one morning and I was like, I was mad. I was like, you wanted me to fucking let go. I let go. Is this going to get better? And I realized I didn't let go because I was still, like I was waiting for the thing, whatever the thing was. And when you let go, you have to 100% let go. And I was like, I'm done. I can't anymore. So I just, let go. And 2 months after that, something happened that made it very clear that the partnership that I was in, business wise, needed to end. And, 4 months after that, things just started literally falling into place. So it was about a year process.
Mm-hmm.
And I would, and as things were happening, like I saw like, a deer. I remember we moved in here and we had been here for like 2 years and I never saw a deer. Like my freaking backyard is the forest and I never saw a deer. And I was like, okay, wait a minute here. So I was like, okay, I guess the day that I see the deer is when something really special is going to happen. And I did. I wanted something. I realized I could manifest stuff, and I didn't know that I could manifest stuff. But I saw the deer, and then like I'm getting goosebumps. Everything just changed, and it was like, oh, okay. I probably should have done this a long time ago. Because when you listen to your soul, and Kim, who's my astrological business strategy coach, she'd be listening to this and like want to smack me in the head going, I've been trying to tell you that. Because I started not letting go again. And when I started not letting go, and so it's like, if you are going to decide to trust, you need to just decide that that's it. You are going to trust. And when those little doubts creep in, you kind of have to squish them down and be like, no, you're going to put me in that spot again. No, I'm just going to trust. And for somebody who has massive trust issues, it's hard. But it worked.
Good for you. And obviously it's still working because you're now in a wholly different place, right?
Oh, completely. Yeah.
So that's what I think is so valuable about Gene Key's work, because Gene Keys, basically, by looking at human design and Gene Keys, you get a map of your genetic imprint, your soul's imprint of your soul journey the moment you're born, right? It's like kind of like astrology, but it's dealing more with your genetic imprint. And so what Gene Keys shows us is these patterns of mistrust, of doubt, of fear that most of us live in all the time, right? And in Gene Keys, it's called shadow, right? It's the low frequency that is not resourceful. It holds us back from actually living the gifts that we were designed to bring out. Like I said, our genetic gifts. And so understanding how these patterns play out by understanding your Gene Keys, the essential ones that are important for whatever you're doing. You're manifesting your prosperity, bringing out your innate talent, having fulfilling relationships, really stepping into your life destiny and what you're here to what you're here to do, your soul's gifts that will serve yourself and humanity in some way. So when we understand that and we see, oh gosh, I'm really operating at this non-resourceful frequency, and it comes up in these situations, right? By self-reflection or self-contemplation, then we can shift those into a higher frequency, which is what Gene Keys calls the gift. I call it resourceful, right? So instead of being stuck in fear, you actually can step into trust, right? Or step into a quality that more serves you. Like one of the ones that's really important for me in my life it's called Gene Key 40. It's my conscious sun activation, and that's like my radiance, my brand, my life's work. And Gene Key 40 is called, at the non-resourceful level, is called exhaustion. And that is pushing myself. It's in the heart center, so it's willpower, right? So it's exhaustion. I did this for so long. That was one of the things that I crashed, right, in my work. I pushed myself in a job that I was not designed for, but by God, I'm going to do it and I'm going to succeed because I'm driven to be as good as I can be. And it pushed me over
Right.
the edge, right? And so it took me years to recover from that. But when I learned about Gene Keys, I got, oh my gosh, I do that, I push myself way too hard. I take on things I shouldn't be taking on because I'm afraid of not having enough money or not being liked or whatever the story is that I tell myself. But the gift of that, the resourceful quality, is resolve. And resolve to only say yes to the things that bring me joy.
Wow.
That was a profound shift in my life. Profound. I stopped saying yes to things. Well, I still get stuck there every now and then, but for the most part, I stopped saying yes to things that really didn't make my heart happy. And magic happened. Everything changed. So when we start following our innate design, our energetic genetic blueprint, we're aligning with life. We're aligning with the universal energy. And then life gets easier, right? That's why you started seeing the deer, and all of a sudden things started changing for you in ways that were positive because you started letting go of pushing yourself by saying yes to things that really weren't your soul's happy place, basically.
Yes, 100%. And I remember, when I started my business, I started it out of necessity. It was like,
Mm-hmm.
Either go on unemployment, find another job, and probably leave that job because I can't
Yeah,
work
me
for
too.
anybody anymore, right?
Same
or
thing.
or figure something out, and I did, and it was. In the beginning it was great, and then my shoulder went. And I had to have shoulder surgery, and it was just like, when I look back on it, it was like all this big fucking lesson that is just like, damn. But I couldn't see it then, right? Because,
Yep.
you know, like, I never thought I was going to be an entrepreneur. If you would have told me
Me
I was going to
neither.
have my own business, and I would have been like, you're out of your mind. There's no way. Like, my family was telling me for years, you need to be in sales when I was younger. And I was like, no, I need that guaranteed paycheck. I can never be in sales. I should have fucking done it. It would have been like a whole, but whatever, we follow the path that we're supposed to. So that's what I did. But,
Yeah, it's all those mental programs.
yep, never thought I was going to be an entrepreneur. So on that line, an entrepreneurship, what advice would you give somebody who's thinking about becoming an entrepreneur right now?
Yeah. The advice that I would give, and I think you would probably be interested if you agree with me. I've been through tons and tons of trainings about being an entrepreneurial coach and developing your own business, and every single one of them says it is the path of personal growth, that you're going to hit every terror barrier that you have, and you have to overcome that. So that's the advice I would give. One, follow your heart, right? If your heart and soul are saying, this is what I'm meant to do, and if you're not clear, then whatever process, whether it's human design or Gene Keys or a coach or, whatever process to get clear on what your gift is to the world and who you're here to be. And then two, be ready to do a lot of personal work, right? Because you'll be challenged. It is one of the hardest, I think
Yeah.
it's one of the hardest paths of personal growth and spiritual growth. Ram Dass, who you probably have heard of, he said that his mind was that relationship is the hardest spiritual path. And I would say that's probably true, but I would also say that being an entrepreneur is probably right there with it, because it will test you in every way you can imagine to hold on to your truth and trust in your inner guidance. That's what I would suggest.
I
Hold
love
on to
that.
that
And
vision.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I ask that question every episode and I get so many different, and I love that question because I get so many different things. But what's funny is that, I always say that if you ever want to know who you really are, become an entrepreneur because of
Yes.
that, because you will go through every trial and tribulation that you could possibly think of.
Yep.
But you got to go through it to get through it.
Yes.
So, and I think that, for those of us that are in touch with our souls, I guess I'll say, that we get to follow our soul journey. We realize it when that time comes. And it's, for me, it was very, gosh, this is the journey that I'm supposed to be on, and all of the crap that's going, that's happening with it. And in hindsight, when I look at it, it's like, it all makes sense. Why things had to happen the way they happened, because if they didn't, I wouldn't be where I am
That's
now.
right. That's exactly
Right?
right.
I
We
think it'd
are
be a
the
whole
we are the
different.
result of all of our choices.
Mm-hmm. Yep, 100%. And they are choices. They are,
They
right?
are.
We could choose to stay in corporate and do the thing. We could choose to, like my biggest thing was, like people would hire me to do their marketing and then they would tell me what to do. Well, it's like, again,
Yeah.
why fucking hire me? Like, why, if you want to do the marketing, then do it. Why do you need me? And that's what it would get to. And I remember looking back saying, oh, that's why it never worked. Okay. Because I was supposed to be doing this. And in this, I am of service because I do know that one of my sole purposes is to be of service.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's the 6-2, right? We're here to help others. So I'm just looking at your human design, just briefly, and your natural talent, the natural talent that you have genetically, is to help people with vision. Right? I mean,
So,
So the in Gene Keys speak, it's about moving from fantasy into anticipation, which is really what is possible. What is the vision and it's a sixth line, so that means you're here to lead others to help them crystallize their vision, crystallize what's possible for them, help them manifest their dreams.
Yeah, which is what I do. And not just in my business. I mean, I told you about the nurse that was taking care of me when I was at the doctor, and she wanted to start her own business. And
yeah.
So I'm in the doctor's office, and the nurse comes in. She's taking my vitals, and she's done, and she goes, "Do you need me to write a note, for your employer?" And I kind of chuckled, and I was like, "No, I own my own business." And she was like, "Oh, that's amazing. I've always wanted to do that." And I said, "Oh." And, I said, so what do you want to do? Like have your own nurse practice? And she was like, "No." She goes, "Culinary." And I was like, "Oh, you want to open a restaurant?" And so she goes, "No, a food truck." And I was like, "Do it." And she just looked at me like, I can't even tell you. And she goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Do you like working here?" And she said, "Yes." I said, work here for another, however long it's going to take you to save the money to have that down payment for your food truck, and then go do it.
Yep.
And she starts she's getting teary, and she goes, "Can I hug you?" And I went, "Yes." And she gave me this giant hug, and she goes, "I've been fighting with this for 6 months." She goes, "My mom and I have been talking about it, and I didn't know." I'm getting goosebumps oh my God.
That's awesome.
In my toes right now. And she was like, I can't believe that, this is the answer. And as she turns to leave, she said, "Thank you." She goes, "I really believe God sent you." to me. And I
There you
just
have
looked at
it.
her like, what? So my doctor comes in and he's like, what did you do to my nurse? And I said, why? She's like crying and laughing at the same time. And I was like, 'cause I wasn't going to tell him, what she was planning.
Probably not
And
a
I
good
said, I don't know.
idea.
I guess there's a way with people, right? No, but I wonder if she ever, like, if you are listening to this and you know who you are, let me know if you did this, because I would love to know, right? Like, did she start that food truck?
You
But
planted the seed
I
and lit
do
the
feel,
fire.
no, the seed was already there. I
Well,
just
you
gave
lit
her
it.
the fertilizer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And that happens so many times. People come to me,
Well,
and so yeah, it makes sense.
that's
It makes
it.
sense. It's crazy though.
Yeah.
This stuff still blows my mind, and it shouldn't. I should be used to it and know it by this point, right? And
Well,
it just always
I've,
fascinates me.
like I said, I've done this since, when did I start doing readings? 2012 is when I started my training in human design
Wow.
and started doing readings. And I don't know, I've done hundreds and hundreds since then. And almost unanimously, almost across the board, they say scary spot on when they find out. I had a woman, this was heartbreaking for me, but it was she was in her 70s and she wanted me to do her human design reading. And I did. And she started crying. And I was like, oh my God, what have I done? And I said, tell me, what are the tears about? And she says, I've been fighting against myself my whole life. And this is what I knew to be who I am.
Damn.
And she never felt like she had the right, the ability to live who she knew she was. That is the gift of human design and Gene Keys. It helps us to stop fighting with ourselves, fighting against who we are. It robs us of life's joy that is our birthright.
Wow. Well, anybody listening, and I truly mean this, if you are not comfortable in what you're doing, if you feel that something just doesn't feel right, get a reading. Like, get hold of Nancy and let her do your human design and your Gene Keys, because I will tell you, when we first started talking, you asked if you could do mine, and I said yes. And I remember you showing me the chart, and I was like, shit, like, because it's like, it is so eye-opening. And the fact that I got here on my own, that I was able to listen to my soul prior, to me is a miracle, because by my chart that I'm just a stubborn little pain in the ass. And it's like, the fact that I got the little nudge, and I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it, is amazing to me, because I usually don't listen. So the fact that I listen, but it really does make a difference. And it's really freeing.
Yes.
When you
Yes.
when you can find out that whatever it is that you may or may not know that you've been feeling or thinking, when you find it out, you're like, oh crap, that has been there. I just didn't know that. I didn't know that's what it was. I think that is so amazing. So yeah. And I wish we started talking about that sooner. Thank you so much for
You're welcome.
sharing your time with, myself and my audience today. How do people find you?
My website is Nancy Lynn, Lynn, Monson, MONSON.com. And on the resources page, there's several things that are free for downloading. And you can also request your free chart if you want to get your human design chart. There's lots of availability online, but you can also reach out and connect with me, and we can schedule a time to chat. So I'd love to help you. So what really turns me on in my life is helping people live who they are. I mean, that just, when I see someone break through and and overcome some self-limiting belief or pattern, it really brings tears to my eyes. I'm so honored and I'm so touched that I got to witness that and be a part of them liberating themselves from their own prison.
I love that. And the last question that I ask all my guests, and that you pretty much answered it, is what lights your fire?
That's it. It's that. Like I said, it's so humbling and so soul satisfying to witness someone live their potential, live who they really are, bring out their soul's beauty. Right? We all are genius. We all have our unique genius, and very few of us are willing to go through the process to bring that out, to let go of our own fears and our own limitations, and really have the courage to bring out our gifts. And that, to me, there's nothing that's more beautiful to me than that.
That just gets me like right here. Again, thank you so much. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to say goodbye to the audience, and I'll be right back.
Okay.
Everybody, I hope that after hearing Nancy, that you feel the way about her that I do. She's just amazing. And what I didn't say in the beginning, I'm going to get better at this, is to please like, share, subscribe, review. I think there's a little bell down there that you can click on, and, you can subscribe and, leave a review. How did you feel about this episode? What did this episode mean to you? Leave, a comment. What spoke to you? I know I went off on a tangent about my mom. I did not expect that. I don't know where that came from, but yeah. So thank you all so much for, again, listening and watching and all the things, and letting me continue to do this because I love it. I appreciate each and every one of you. So until next time, go out and find what lights your fire. See ya.